Welcome to The Growth Shift, the podcast where we unlock the psychological and strategic blueprints of predictable growth. If you've built a successful business, you know the truth. Your expertise is high value, but your time is finite. The question is, how do you sustain that success without sacrificing your most valuable asset? We believe that the next level of success requires a strategic pivot, a fundamental shift that moves beyond the old ways. In every episode, we dive into the critical turning points of industry leaders and uncover how they're leveraging AI not as a shortcut, but as the strategic force for their next growth shift. Today, we dive in with a leader who is defining the future of their industry. This episode is brought to you by Valentix, your strategic growth partner. At Valentix, we believe that trust and authentic relationships are the only true currency in high-value business. We challenge the status quo by building an AI-powered client acquisition engine that enhances your human connection, helping you move beyond the slow growth of referrals. Our AI-powered systems eliminate the grind, allowing you to break through the noise, automate tasks, and free up your time to focus on transformative client impact. If you're ready to build a predictable growth engine, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're joined by Paul Pape, the visionary founder of Gamify Business. Paul's career is a dynamic example of creative adaptation and strategic communication, spanning from an aspiring actor to a world-renowned designer who has worked with giants like Disney and Universal. After spending 6 years streaming on Twitch, teaching others his craft, Paul pivoted to consulting, now helping creatives and entrepreneurs translate complex business concepts into an easy-to-understand gamified system. His insights into product-first selling, the power of storytelling, and making business fun offer a powerful blueprint for any creative looking to build a thriving venture. Paul, welcome to The Growth Shift.
Thanks for having me, David. I appreciate it.
Well, you're definitely the coolest guy we've had on the show. I wish I could have an office that looks like yours. Paul, you got to tell us a little bit more about your background. You began in theater, aspiring to be an actor. You moved into design. You worked with some household name companies, we could say, and eventually landed to find yourself in consulting. Tell us a little bit more about that journey, how it played out, and what some of the biggest lessons you learned through that time were.
So I think the biggest takeaway that anybody can get from my journey is bend, don't break. That's been my philosophy through life. And so to distill it down, as I started out as an actor, was told I'm not a good actor. And so, not that I can't be good on stage, I'm just not really good at memorizing, so I'm the worst scene partner to have. So give me a monologue, I can kill it for days, but otherwise, not so good. So when I was in undergrad, I had declared first day, going to be a theater major, going to be an actor. And then about 2 months into that was told, nope, not going to happen. And so then I had to go find something else. And so I was fortunate enough to have a mentor come down and say, how would you like to learn everything? And what he meant by that was literally every aspect of theater, from janitorial to box office to management to design. Everything that you could get your hands on, he taught me. And that was great because I'm a sponge. I love to learn. And so that got me into knowing a little bit about all these different aspects. And when I found design, I just absolutely fell in love with it. The idea of using my imagination to create worlds just really sang to me. And so I did that for undergrad and then won some nice prestigious awards, then went off to graduate school, won some more really nice worldwide awards. And then from there, I just graduated. I was assisting a guy, a designer on this show, and we were just chatting one day as assistants and designers do. And I asked him, so what's it like? At the moment, he had like 4 or 5 shows on Broadway. It was really killing it. And I was like, what's it like being an Apex for like the design, the career, the degree I just got? And he said, it sucks. It's not good. If you want a steady income, if you want to have a life, if you want all these things, this is not the career for you. And like kind of burst my bubble right there. But I appreciated the honesty in it. And so from there, I was like, okay, well, if that's not what's going to be the thing that allows me to thrive and be who I want to be, what will? And so then I really went back into the thing that I actually truly love about the design work, which is being able to use my imagination to create things that don't exist and to appeal to people with it. And so from there, I kind of, roundabout way, started making custom collectibles for people. And that started off as a fluke. I was a professor at a university in my third year. I hated it, had already put in my resignation, was filling out the last part of the year. And a student asked me if I would make him something from the Nintendo Wii. I don't know if you remember that from back in the day, but he wanted some Mii's for him and his girlfriend for Valentine's Day. And I'm like, yeah, sure, man, why not? So I charged him $50. I made a couple of them for him. And what I didn't know is he submitted it to a blog. And this is in the Wayback Machine before everybody had a website, a blog, and everything else under the sun. And so it was a place called Super Punch, and it went viral. It was the first viral thing I ever did. And I started getting so many requests for me to make their Mii's that I was making more money on the side than I was teaching. And that was something I was just really passionate about. And so I started doing that. And then here's where bend, don't break comes in, which is everyone started asking for random things. Can you make this? Can you make this? Can you make this? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? I don't know how to make it, but I'll figure it out. The requests just kept getting crazier and crazier. And the more that I would complete them, they would just get crazier and crazier. And I was like, all right, cool. Let's see where it goes. And then eventually like Disney calls me up and they're like, well, can you make this? I'm like, yeah, sure, I can make that. Tonight Show calls me up and goes, hey, you're a Lego expert. You can do stop motion animation with Lego. I'm like, sure I can. Can you make this? Sure I can. And just like everything was just yes and. It's like the number one rule in improv. Yes and then just try and figure it out. And I got a really wide skill set thanks to my mentor who kind of let me learn a little bit about everything. And I've never stopped learning. And I think that's a really big one. And so that's really what led me into that. But then one day I was sitting in my basement studio, which is where I'm at now, and I was bored. My kids were in school. I had nothing going on. I was just tired of working in a vacuum. And so I was like Googling work live on camera so I can not be bored. And it said Twitch. And I'm like, okay. I'm not kidding you. This is no exaggeration. For 2 years, I thought that Twitch was for artists who wanted to be on camera making art. I had no idea it was about gaming. None. I jumped on. I had 20 to 30 people right off the bat, and I was just doing art, and people really thought I was engaging, and so I was just talking. And then eventually I found out there was this whole other side to it, which is like 85% of it is all gaming. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. So I was in a pocket, and that pocket I was really successful in because I became like the guru who was doing really well at the job. And so all these people who were kind of like side hustling art was like, here's a guy who's actually doing it, and he's showing us, and you ask him anything, he'll give you the answer because I don't gatekeep anything. And so like I said, did that for about 6 years. And then one day I was sitting there and I'm like, I can reach more people if I went away from Twitch, because I was doing 6 to 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. This is a long time to be talking live on camera. Yeah. And I was like, I can reach a lot more people. And so I was like, let's go start doing the public speaking network. I'm going to start doing public speaking. I went and did a TEDx talk, and I went and did all this. And I realized that the people that I could impact were not on Twitch. They were everywhere else. And so I was like, okay, let's start doing this. And then that led me to meeting some clients. And it's always just kind of bending to what the world is leading you towards. And that's really how Gamify came about. Is I was working with a client, just a couple of artists, and I was helping them figure things out. And they were really stuck on business. They didn't understand it. It was they're artists. We don't understand business is what they kept saying. And so I was like, you guys are nerds. I'm a nerd. And so I'm like, hey, how about I come back tomorrow? We're going to play Dungeons and Dragons Business Edition. And I'm just pulling this out of my ass. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just making it up. And we showed up, and I paid for about 4 hours. I was dungeon mastering these people. They were playing, instead of being like a warrior and a wizard and all that, they were actually playing the role in their business that they were. And so then the monsters that they encountered are things that we would encounter in business. Oh, we got to go slay the dragon to get some money because we needed the horde. And so all these things that would be like businessy, but I was just turning them into like Dungeons and Dragons themes. Mm-hmm. And we played for 4 hours, and their eyes just kept like, geez, I get this. And then at the end, the guy comes up to me and goes, is this business? I'm like, yeah, man, this is all business is. And he goes, I finally understand it. He'd been in business for 13 years and gotten into some really sticky situations because he didn't understand business. And I'm like, it's not complicated, guys. You just need to frame it. And so that actually was the birth of Gamify, which was, and a lot of people are like, oh, you're just playing a game of business. I'm like, no, it's actually your business. But what I'm doing is I'm translating business into gaming themes because we all understand gaming. If you can level up a character from 1 to 10, you can level up your business and understand how that works. If you can create a character, you can build your business. And so that's really all that Gamify is just a translation service. And what I found is working with people, I find a lot of customers who are like, I don't play games. I don't know nothing about games. I'm like, well, that's not necessarily true, but cool, what are you into? And my superpower is that I'm able to adapt your cool thing that you are into a framework that you can then understand in business. I'm a really great translator of whatever weird thing you're into business terminology so that you can understand it and flourish in your business.
Paul, that is an incredible story, an incredible journey. One thing really stands out to me, and it's that you followed your heart through the whole thing. Of course, there were a couple of broken hearts along the way, but you bent, you didn't break. Your heart was broken, you found a new love, and you just kept following that direction. And through that, you found notoriety, you found success, you found, we could call it fame in some situations as well, right? Now, a lot of people starting businesses and pursuing business are trying to follow their heart at times as well. But I think they often get to situations where perhaps they're falling out of love, or maybe they're in that broken heart situation and they're still trying to pursue something that used to be their love, that used to be the direction their heart pointed. They weren't willing to bend, to be flexible, to change, and to find that new direction. Do you have any insights or any perspectives that you could share with people in that situation who are currently stuck and they're not being flexible, they're not bending, and perhaps they feel like they're close to breaking?
I think there's two of them here, and one of them is going to be a little bit brash, and it may be jarring to hear. And I actually heard it from a college professor. It was a costume design professor that I had in graduate school. And when you're a designer and you're constantly innovating and you're creating new things, especially when you're doing theater, because it's just like every week you've got a new show you got to design, and you get really attached to this stuff. And I remember sitting through this design presentation once, and somebody, I think it wasn't even me, I think somebody else was like pouring their heart and soul into this description of these costumes and why these characters are like this, and it wasn't working. Just wasn't working. And I think we can all relate to that as a creative, that sometimes it just doesn't work. And she goes, okay, I'm going to stop here. Sometimes you got to kill your babies. And it's a horrible thing to say out loud, but it's the truth. It's like sometimes you nurture something from conception to reality, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And sometimes you got to let it go. And that's a hard lesson to learn. So a softer way or a better approach to this is something, it's an analogy I like to use a lot now, especially with the Gamify Business stuff, is that passion should be the thing that you are pursuing. It is not fame, it is not fortune, it is your passion. And I like to, because fame and fortune are dragons that we're always going to chase. We always think it's just right in front of us. We're almost there. And if you spend all of your time pursuing those two things, you're going to lose the passion because you're just trying to catch fame and fortune. The idea, though, is if you ride the dragon of passion, the dragons of fame and fortune will follow behind you. And that's the truth. If you're passionate about what you do, you'll never lose sight of it because those are the things that you'll always come back to. When I'm dealing with clients, it's the very first question I ask. What is the thing that you're passionate about? And if you cannot answer that, you need to do some soul searching because that's really what's going to be the thing that allows you to continue doing it when fame and fortune are not there. Because there will be mean times. There will be people constantly telling you, you are not going to make it. But the reality is you are. If you're passionate about it, you will make it. And you just need to stick with that passion. Your audience is out there. You'll find them. Chase passion. Don't chase fame and fortune.
So you can chase the dragon of fame or the dragon of fortune, but if you capture the dragon of passion and ride it, you'll have a thunder of dragons flying behind you, ultimately. So that's it.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Well, you gave us an excellent story of how it is that you found what you're passionate about through Gamify, right? The Dungeons and Dragons parallel to business and taking people through that. And of course, finding yourself in a position where you had something that not only excited you and aligned with yourself, but also was solving real problems for other people. Can you tell us a little bit more about when you come in and work with a client, how do you apply this to their exact situation in a way that really resonates and makes sense to them?
So I think the biggest misconception about this is that I'm going to come in and we're just going to play around and not take it seriously. Now, I will say we do play, and that is the entire point of it because our lives are too darn short to not be playing all the time. Business is work. It is work, but you should be having fun doing it. So when I come in, the first thing that we do is we do a character creation. I have found that the easiest way to break down people's barriers is to disassociate them from themselves. Our egos get in our way a lot, especially with entrepreneurs. We are flawless beings who can make no mistakes, which we all know is a lie. But when I ask them, what are your strengths and weaknesses? They've all got strengths, but they have zero weaknesses. So what we do is we do a character creation. And what we do is that character is you. And we disassociate yourself just one step. But instead of saying, well, my weakness is this, because then you're admitting defeat, you're saying my character's weakness is this. And a weakness is not a bad thing. And so what we do is we all go through our characters and we create this thing. And so we really drill down and we do introspection. Because if you don't know you or what you want to do with your business, you're never going to be successful because you're still trying to figure it out. And so we want to figure out who you are. Once we're done with that, then we do my favorite part, which is called looking for group, which if you're watching this on video, you'll see that I'm standing in front of a tavern here. And that's because I play the barkeep. I'm not the dungeon master / barkeep. I'm not the guy who's going to tell you all the answers. What I am is I'm the meeting place that's heard all these people come in, and I know where the jobs are, and I know where your group could be. And so I'm just the guy with the information. And what that does is it takes me off of a pedestal, because I'm not here to come in as the god that's going to dictate what you need to do. I'm the guy who's going to be like, here's the information, run with it. And so we do looking for group, and we're looking for people who can complement you. I love being around people who are like-minded. That's fun. That makes for a good friend group. But in business, it's the quickest way to kill your business. You want to be able to find people who complement your weaknesses, and that you complement theirs, and that you make a well-rounded group. Because there's nothing worse than going in to fight a dragon and you've got 5 warriors, because you're going to wipe. You need a mage, you need a healer, you need a DPS, you need all of these other people to help support and make a well-rounded group. So that's what we do. And then from there, we start doing challenges. And I love it because people get really into this. I don't know if you're familiar with Myers-Briggs, but it's kind of like a personality test. I have a personality test built into who your character is. And so, but instead of being like, I'm a blue-green, it's like, I'm a warrior I'm an emotional warrior, or we have these different categories, and you get playing cards, the whole 9 yards. And it makes it fun, because then you can walk around, you're like, I'm a warrior, and I'm looking for a ranger. Are you a ranger? Awesome. You're going to be my counterpart. And that's what we do. And we just play. But then what we find out is that you start to build these systems and these groups together in the business, whether it's a business that's got 50 to 100 employees or it's a team of 3. You find out what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then what we do from there is we say, now that you know what your strengths and weaknesses are, don't try to spearhead your weakness. Give that job to the person whose strength that is. And then they're like, oh, I start to get it now. And then you're starting to rely on your group. And that's what's really going to help you be profitable. So that's the fun. That's the things that we do. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So essentially you come in and you help companies and teams take complex systems and processes that are intimidating, and you make them more understandable, digestible, and even fun, so that people, I think, won't be standoffish and have walls up when it comes to that introspection, but actually be able to understand themselves in a way that is, again, a little bit more fun, a little bit more enjoyable, so that it's something they'll lean into rather than lean away from ultimately.
Well, we all know those people who are extroverts, and we know those people who are introverts. Some of the most pivot-worthy things for your business, the things that can be the most profitable, come from the quietest person. But in a room full of extroverts, that quiet person will never work to be heard. But in a scenario like this, where you need the healer to take the forefront, that's the quiet person. And they're going to be like, this is what I would do. You would be surprised how much people are like, I never would have given you the time of day because I didn't think you had anything to say. And they're like, no, it's just because I don't want to compete with the noise. And that's the great thing about it, is it really helps to give everybody an even playing field, because we all have our strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm. And it helps team members identify the strengths of others so that they can go for them, not just to lean on them, but to enhance them as well. Incredible.
Absolutely.
Paul, share an example with us. Give us a story about a company that you came in with, how you helped implement this Gamify approach, and what they were able to do as a result.
So the one example that I gave earlier was with the team that actually helped me figure out Gamify, but I'll give you another one. I had this artist come straight out of school, and they were going to solo it out. They wanted to be an artist, but they didn't really know what they were. So we actually spent 3 weeks going through their character sheet, just character creation. And from that, every week they would come back and they're like, oh, I found this extra depth to what I did. And then from there, they're like, I don't know what I want to do. All I know is I want to put art into the world and make it better. Okay, cool. By the end of the 3 weeks of character creation, we had a game plan in place. We're like, here's your quest. And it was uncomfortable for them to do it, but it landed them a really well-paying job straight out of college, in which they get to take all of the things that they love and share it with a lot of people. So they're creating these. They had a pop-up that they created. They are now working for this company that has outreach that allows them to reach other people who might become artists as well. And it was overall just like open their eyes. And they paid me for just, like 5 or 6 sessions. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but then they came back like a year and a half later and said, if it wasn't for that information you gave me to look inside myself and really know who I was, I would still be floundering as this person who wanted to do the thing, but didn't know where to go with it. And I've got so many of those like little ones that it seems like a minuscule step for me because I've been doing this for so long, or it doesn't seem like it's a huge astronomical game changer from somebody from the outside, but for that individual person who's now going to be able to affect a lot of other people using the same theories and ideas that I taught them, it's a game changer. And it really helps to elevate the artist out of the starving artist thing into the thriving artist, which is what I'm really for.
I absolutely love that. With what you're doing, I'm sure it's broadly misunderstood. right? Gamify Business. People probably look at that and think, oh, I don't want to play games. Games won't solve business problems. But what you do is profound. A lot of consultants and coaches alike have very unique approaches to providing value, providing real value and true impact. But they're facing challenges with client acquisition, having people in the market and prospective clients understand the true value of what they do on the surface level, let alone on a greater depth. For someone such as yourself with such great impact and with such a developed business that truly solves problems, but one that is very widely misunderstood, I'm sure, where are you finding success when it comes to acquiring clients in a market that probably doesn't truly understand your real value?
Dude, let me tell you. Yes. One of the things that I was told when I first started doing this, and I was like, I want to be a consultant. I had never been a consultant before. So I hired some coaches. And the very first thing that they told me is the first thing you have to get rid of is this idea that you can help everyone. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so then I didn't. I tried not to help everyone. And then after about a year of that, I went, nah, I'm going to help everyone. I'm going to do it my way. And my entire business for 20 years has been about customization, which I've also been told by many business leaders, custom is the death of a business. You cannot help every client do the thing that they want. And I'm like, well, I've been doing it for 20 years and I'm really successful at it. So I don't think that's true. I just think you have to understand how to approach it. So client acquisition at first was extremely difficult because I was trying to use everyone else's playbook to find my clients. And so it was a lot of cold calling, a lot of outreach, a lot of emails, a lot of all this stuff, trying to put up social media posts that say, I'm a cool dude, come work with me. But everyone is screaming that into the void and it's not helpful. So the thing that has been the most useful for me is use case scenarios, man. I love to get in front of groups of people. I do a lot of trade shows. I love trade shows where I just sit behind, I bring a tavern with me. And I sit behind I'm a tavern. I've got the towel over my shoulder. I got the whole 9 yards. And I act as though I'm in this tavern. And people come in and they're like, oh, do you sell drinks? I'm like, no, what I do is I change your. And then we start to talk and they're like, well, how do you do that? I'm like, let's play a game. And so I'm like, here's a character creation sheet. Just answer these 5 questions. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about yourself. And it is, once they're like, this is really interesting. I could see how kids could use this. I could see how adults could use this. I could see how my mom could use this. I'm like, absolutely. It's getting in front of the people and really being able to express the idea, because you're not wrong. I've had people come up to me and go, we don't have time for games. This is serious. This is business. And I'm like, okay, cool. Not my client. Let it go.
Yeah.
But the reality is once I start to talk to him about it, the gears start to turn. I literally just finished an interview with a guy and we got done with it. And he's like, this is so brilliant. And I've been trying to figure out how to get into something. And then this is exactly what I needed to hear. And I'm like, that's the key right there. In my books, I talk about something called the 100 people effect. It's like social media kind of wrecks us because we think we need to be viral for everything. Everything needs to be a million likes and all that. But the reality is, and if you think back before social media, when you're like a small town and you owned a business, you didn't want 1 million people coming through your door. It would wreck your business. You wouldn't be able to sustain that. You need 100 people. That's it. 100 super fans. And once you start teaching that, I think you become sustainable in a way that is, you'll never work another day. It's like, I need these 100 people. And the 100 people constantly change, but it's like, there we go. Now I am a successful business person making a substantial amount of money, sustainable over and over again by reaching these 100 people. So these days, I don't do the cold outreach. I don't do mass market emails or any of that stuff. What I do is I try to talk to you. And that's really genuinely what it is. I try to connect to people on a way that will truly understand them. And it comes into play with the translation services that I offer is like, I want to be able to know who you are, what you're trying to do, and then see if I am useful in that regards. And that's really been the secret sauce to me being successful.
Thank you for sharing that, Paul. This is really, really valuable for the audience because there are a lot of people utilizing cold outreach, email, phone calls, and all of these things and falling flat with them. And while those things do work, the goal isn't to make a sale with that approach, right? The goal should be to get in front of somebody for a real conversation so you can display an understanding of them and try and translate what it is you do and how to work in their situation. I mean, focusing on people, going to trade shows, I love what you're doing. You're bringing the tavern. Of course, that's going to attract people, but putting yourself in front of people in situations where you can display value, create intrigue, first and foremost, display value and make a real connection is what is hands down the most valuable, especially in an AI-driven world. It sounds like in the early days, you tried a number of different things for client acquisition. They didn't work. You found something that really aligns with you and is working and is sustainable. When it comes to, consultants who want to grow beyond that sustainable level approach. They want their business to grow. They want more impact. Cold outreach is something that is essential or seemingly essential, right? I mean, you can create social media content, potentially you can go viral, but to have a little bit more control over it, it requires a little bit more strategy. If you were to break into the cold outreach for intentional scale again, what do you think would be the biggest challenges you'd be up against in today's market for the sake of the audience?
So I've thought about this a lot because I'm like, I'd love to have a further reach, and cold marketing seems to be the way to do it. And what I have found is not successful for me personally is trying to go out there and say briefly and succinctly what it is that I do. And so in trying to fit into this format that everyone seems to think works really well. I mean, if you're ever on social media and you've ever Googled cold outreach, you're going to be inundated by social media influencers and all these people telling you how to do it. What I have found is most successful for me is to go against the grain. My cold outreach is so not what you would expect. It's in your face, it's blatant, there's some swear words in it. I'm trying to make you go, what? Just long enough to read a little bit further into it. And it seems to work. So the problem is when you're doing cold outreach like that, mass market email, the reality is 3 to 5% of people may respond to you, and out of that, 2% might purchase from you. That's hours and thousands of emails, and on the hope that you're going to get 2 or 3. So if I'm approaching this problem, what I do more is I do a lot more research into who it is that I'm specifically trying to find. Who is my ideal customer? And believe it or not, it's really easy to figure out who your ideal customer is because it's usually you. Okay, because I like my stuff. So I'm going to try and find people like me who like my stuff. And so what I do is I find those people and then I outreach to them. But if you do that little bit of research, I think one of my mentors said the best way to approach it is to think about if they stole your child, what would you do to find your kid? That's the kind of research you need to be doing into your client. You're like, it's taken to the extreme. You know, I got a special set of skills here. And that's really what you want to do. You want to apply all that to finding out who this person is. Because then when you go to talk to them, it's like you know them and they read that right off the, so even if it's cold, they're like, that's me. And you're like, yeah, that's who it is. And so that's probably the easiest, best approach nowadays is to really do your research.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. If you're experimenting with cold outreach, you're trying to make it work, you need to intimately understand who it is you're trying to connect with, not just their goals, not just their pains, but how they think, right? What's going to draw them into a conversation that will be important to them, one that you can provide value through. And especially if you're in a situation where you have a very complex way of doing business, an environment in which you'll have time to deliver that and have them be receptive to it as well. So Paul, I love that approach. If they abducted your child, what would you do? Find out that information and hey, you'll have everything you need, we could say. You're clearly a gamer, perhaps more of a gamer in the past than you are today. That usually points in one direction, technology, a love for it, a love for systems, and a lot more as well. When we come to AI, tell us a little bit more now about how you're starting to incorporate AI as part of such a hands-on and personal consulting business such as yours.
Well, I love AI. And as an artist, I fight that fight every day with other artists. They're like, AI is going to steal our jobs and all this. And the reality is it's not. AI is a hammer. It's a tool. That's all it is. It's not thinking. It's not nothing like that. It's the person behind the tool which is going to be more profitable. So I love AI and I use it a lot in different aspects of it. When you're coming up with game mechanics, there's a lot of minutia in there that you don't necessarily think through. But I know there's a lot of games out there already. And so when I was creating Gamify, all of my ideas are original, but there's the minutia, the day-to-day boring stuff that you've got to figure out and work out, that AI has allowed me to have a conversation with someone on my level that understands where I'm coming from if I feed it enough information to be able to make these things better, have a better user experience. And so I use AI for that. I use AI for marketing all the time. I think I don't have them write all of my marketing, but I ask it questions. And I think that's the biggest thing is I don't let the AI do the work. I let the AI help me answer the questions so that I can do the work more efficiently and more well-rounded. And so I use AI for everything. There's actually a part of this program that I have where I make a digital familiar where you upload and ask it questions. And so eventually your AI starts to talk like you. And what I love about that is then I can have a conversation with myself. There's a lot going on in here and everywhere else in my life. And there are some times where I'm like, I would really like to concentrate on this, but I can't store all of that in my short term. And so I use my digital familiar AI and I'm like, okay, I want to get back into this thing. Can you refresh my memory about this? And then, I have this great idea. Where does this fit into the packet? And it all just kind of comes together. I think it's a wonderful tool that, as long as you're using it in the correct way, is it will lift you up because it eliminates all the boring day-to-day minutia stuff that you don't want to take care of to allow you to be the creative that you really want to be, because it's the creativity behind the tool that's really going to help you to flourish.
AI is a hammer. It is a tool. It needs to be used in the right way. Paul, from your perspective as a creative and an artist who understands the value of human connection, where does AI start to become a risk when it's involved in the creative process, potentially compromising authenticity or the unique human element?
And I think that's the answer right there, is when you eliminate the unique human aspect of it. I was sitting in on a new AI that's coming out, because it's not even AI anymore. They like to call it synthetic intelligence is the next level of it. I'm like, oh, okay, let me sit on this. And because I like my AI. And I was sitting there, and the people in the audience were like, I want to write a book. Okay, cool. What's your book about? And they give a sentence. And they're like, okay, now watch, we're going to put it into this synthetic human, and it's going to write a book. And it did. It wrote a 300-page book in like 6 minutes. It's like, oh, that's awesome. Read it to me. They read the first 3 paragraphs and they're like, this is garbage. This is garbage because there's no human in it anymore. I think the biggest misconception is we think that AI, because we think like this, that we come up with an idea and then some brain is going to sit there and synthesize all of this stuff. But the problem is AI doesn't synthesize. AI takes and amalgamates. It takes all these different ideas and smooshes them together. And if there isn't a creative behind it, what you get is gray. It's just, that's all it is. And so that book was gray. And I think that's the problem is that we're running into, is when we give too much control to the AI and then expect that to be the output. The amount of influencers that I've seen I wrote a book this weekend. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, let me read that book. And they're like, well, it's 300 pages. I'm like, how much of that did you physically write? If it's just this amalgamation, the information is there, but it's gray information. It's boring. It's not going to stand out. It's not going to change anything. You're just adding more noise out into the environment. And that book is just now a composition of other people's ideas. We need to put the human back into it. And I think as long as we are the human behind it, and that's our strength as a human, is creativity, is being able to think. I mean, creativity is the idea of being able to generate an idea that never existed before. That's creativity. We are the only animal that we're aware of that can do this. And so it doesn't matter how complicated the machine is. I don't care if it's a quantum computer or whatever. It's not coming up with original ideas. It can't. That's the disconnect that we are coming into. So it's a bright, new, shiny thing. And so we're all like, yeah, let's jump on this bright, new, shiny thing, and it's going to do all the work for us. But then the reality is you're going to find people like me, like you, who are like, no, this is the bright, new, shiny tool. Now I can free myself up and do all these other things because the tool's going to take some of the lifting away from me, but it's still what's in here that makes the difference.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. That unique human element, the perspective, the emotional quotient that goes into creativity, right? Because as you said, AI amalgamates. It can condense information. It can distill it. It can bring together perspectives that maybe other people have shared, but it cannot yet, and hopefully never, create, especially on the level of a human, right? At the end of the day, that's what, as you said, makes us human, our ability to do so. Paul, your story covers creative adaptation, the power of gamification, and a deep commitment to making business fun. For the founders, the consultants, and the growth-minded listeners who are navigating their own growth shift, what's the single most important piece of advice that you would leave them with about embracing their unique path and making business an enjoyable game?
Business is an adventure. Don't be an NPC. Don't be the non-playable character. What I want you to do is I want you to be the hero of your own journey, your own adventure. And here's the thing, is like we're all on our own adventure, and we are solo adventurers, and sometimes we'll group up with people, but at the end of the day, we're solo adventurers. And this life, you can either sit passively and let life by you, or you can be the hero of your own story. And I think that's the part that we get so lost in, because we're trying to pursue the wrong dragons. What we need to do is understand that our adventure is fun. It's a game, and there's so much to be had and enjoyed and just adventured through. That's the reality of it. And if I could give anybody any advice, it's to really be the hero of your own adventure. Don't be a non-playable character. Don't sit by and let your life pass you by.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your advice with the audience today. For anyone listening who might like to learn more about Gamify Business or might like to just continue the conversation with you, what would be the best way to find you?
You can find me online at gamifybusiness.com. I do have my own podcast where I talk about a lot of this stuff. It is called Gamify Business Tavern Tales. So you can go in there and I bring other adventurers in and they get to talk about their adventures as well, which is a lot of fun. So you can find me there. And if you're interested in Santa for Nerds, which is my custom creation thing that I've done, you can go over to paulpapedesigns.com and you can find me there.
Thank you again so much for joining us today on The Growth Shift.
Thank you for having me, David. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Another powerful conversation on The Growth Shift. If you, like our guests, are ready to turn your expertise into a predictable, scalable growth engine, one that eliminates the grind of prospecting and enhances your high-value relationships, then it's time to connect with Valentix. We are not a marketing agency. We are your strategic growth partner, building intelligent systems that ensure your client acquisition is predictable, not dependent on chance. To see how our AI-powered frameworks can free up your time and fill your calendar with decision makers, visit valentix.io. Thank you for joining us on The Growth Shift. We'll see you next time.